What's going on, everybody? This is George Khalife, and this is episode 13 of Let's Grab Coffee. It's a podcast I put together to interview super successful people in different industries, friends of mine, connections of mine, and give you a little taste of what they do, their stories, their background. Today, I'm joined by none other than Rashid. This guy is the expert on branding, messaging, and communication for you and your business. He's the CEO and founder of Life in Shorts. It's a modern-day marketing, digital media, and communication strategy company. It helps companies tell their story like never before. He's also an international speaker. He talks about branding. He talks about how to actually monetize your audience and how to actually effectively storytell what you're doing, whether it's a product, a feature, or yourself as a personal brand. He's fluent in Spanish. He's also, I think he's actually in Colombia right now. I just discovered this. So he travels between NYC, New York, and Colombia. Super cool dude, global reach. And he actually spent 5 years, very interesting fact, spent 5 years being a speechwriter for Mayor Mike Bloomberg's administration. Very cool background. And also actually holds a JD from the City University of New York, CUNY School of Law. Super, super cool dude. Can't wait to have this discussion. Brian, thanks a lot for doing this, man.
George, real pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So look, I did a little intro about yourself. Tell us who you are. Give me like a 2 to 5 minute gist. Who's Brian Rashid?
Sure. You know, I grew up in the middle of America in a city called Peoria, Illinois. Father is Lebanese. My mother's Irish. And, you know, in Peoria, Illinois, sports are a really big thing. And so I spent the first 20 years of my life really in that world. I played college football. I was recruited to play Division I college football, which was kind of a dream of mine at the time. And after a couple of years, I suffered a few really serious, massive concussions, which at the time was heartbreaking for me because I had to give up the thing that I loved the most and taught me basically how to be a person, a leader, and discipline and hard work and all these things. But in retrospect, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because my world opened. And I moved to Europe and I spent some time in Italy studying abroad. And then I went to San Francisco. And then you know, I had some political aspirations. I've always been, since very, very young, this idea of moving millions of people into a better life is something that's just deep inside of me. I remember following my mom around the house when I was literally 3 years old, continuously asking her if she was happy, if she was happy, if she was happy. I just really wanted the people around me to be happy. And then when I even 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, I remember telling my mom, Mommy, I really want to help millions of people. And so I thought, you know, at that time that becoming the mayor of New York City or having some political involvement in some way in such a big city would be a fun way to give back to a community. And so I went to law school. I went to law school at CUNY, which is a law school that focuses on service of human needs. I'm very, very much about helping people that don't have a lot of people looking out for them. So I did 3 years there, quickly realized I definitely didn't want to be a lawyer, but I thought it would be a nice kind of segue into becoming a politician in New York. And so when you want to become the mayor of New York City, the best thing to do is go work for the mayor of New York City. So I worked for Bloomberg, and at first it was on his reelection campaign. I was in charge of recruiting volunteers up in Northern Manhattan and Washington Heights at Harlem. And then after that, he called me into his office, said, you nailed the campaign. You did a great job for us. We want to keep you in the administration. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to write speeches. And so I did that for the next 3 years. And then, you know, what I quickly learned was I had a skill for taking a tremendous amount of information and synthesizing it down to the main points of the story. And, you know, I'd get 50, 60, 70 pieces of paper and they'd tell me, turn this into a 1-minute speech. And so I quickly realized what was really important about things. And then I started to realize, man, communication and the storytelling side of things are really, really important. And so I basically just got sick of having a boss. I loved Bloomberg. I loved him. I loved working for him. I loved Jonathan Mintz, the commissioner that I worked for as well, and both amazing, amazing leaders. But you know this, George, I'm Lebanese, man. It's in our blood to be entrepreneurs. Like, we can't work for people, you know? So I kind of embraced that and went out on my own, moved to San Francisco. And this is almost 6 years ago, started my own communications firm, because what I found was that, you know, whether it was a politician or whether it was a tech startup or whether it was an executive at a company, everybody has to figure out how to tell their story in the most exciting way possible. Because you could have the best product in the world, but if you can't tell the story in a way that's exciting and gets people connected to you in some way that makes them spend their hard-earned money on the thing that you're doing, or in Bloomberg's case, hard-earned time as a volunteer or vote as a citizen, then you really kind of don't have a prayer of of getting to where you want to be as an entrepreneur or a professional or a politician or a nonprofit or whatever the case may be. And so in a line, I've basically been able to figure out how to tell stories that sell. That's kind of my tagline. And then, and what that means is we strategize, we build content, we advise, and everything in between. And so that's a quick 3.5 minute blurb about who I am. But because of that, I get invited to speak at conferences around the world, and I love what I do. I can't imagine not doing it, and that's kind of the backstory.
That's awesome, dude. Look, obviously there's a lot of info in there that I want to sort of pick at. The first thing that you talked about was happiness. That was very important to you growing up. Yeah. You know this obviously as well as I do. And there's a great story around this where before you change others, you got to change yourself, right? If you're not in the right mindset, how can you actually help change someone or drive that positive energy? How was it for you? Like, what was your journey to become just happy with who you are, what you do, who you're becoming, who you will become? How was that?
Well, I think the most important word that you said in the last 28 seconds is mindset, right? And so, listen, I think that I'm very lucky. I think that I actually was born with a very, very positive. I've always been. I can count on the number of both of my hands the number of bad days that I've had in my whole life, and I think that's a gift. I was born with that. But there are so many situations where I do have to work really hard to keep my mindset strong. The world of entrepreneurship is very lonely, and it's very, very difficult. And you have to navigate a lot of situations that don't feel good, whether it be firing people that you care a lot about, or almost being broke, or having people tell you no 1,000 times a year. There's a lot of things that you have to really train your mind to not take it personal and not wrap your self-esteem in that. Right. So the first thing I would say is, like, I was really blessed with a very positive outlook on life. I think that everybody that's listening has the choice to be more positive, wherever you start as a base, right? I was here. Some people, I know loads of people that are as low as it goes, and then I know people in between. But every single person I've been able to see make that choice to be happy. And for me, George, it's like this, man. It's like you can either be happy or you can dwell on things that will make you unhappy. And it's really I'm 35 now, and the thing that I've really kind of come to grips with in the last 2 years is you either choose to be happy or you don't, or you choose to dwell on the other stuff. And I just have really, really been working hard to train my mind to be indestructibly happy. And that doesn't mean that everything goes well. It just means that you choose to see the luck and the opportunity that you've been given as a human being to actually do something with your life that's meaningful. And for me, that's kind of the thing. I also had 2 great parents that, like, it was a great example of hard work and discipline. My mother is the most generous, happy person that I know. And so I think that really does matter a lot as well, what you see growing up. First, 18 years of my life was that. So that matters a lot too. And I just think it's one of my superpowers, is this ability to be happy and to continuously inspire people around me to be happy. And that's kind of how I think about it.
Love it. Well, it definitely shows. I actually didn't even know you were 35. So.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Man, kudos to that.
Can't see my gray hairs yet.
No, that's amazing, dude. Honestly, you can tell from the health and just even talking about mindset as well, what it can do for you physically, mentally.
I believe in it so much, George.
Love it. One of the things I also wanted to talk to you, Brian. Obviously, in your story, there's this pivotal moment, right? You're doing your JD. You're really in the sort of the legal field. What you were doing as a speechwriter. That's almost the epitome. If you want to get into law, but also a vertical into politics, that's almost like the high, right?
Yep.
But you also got to a point where you realized, man, that's not really for me. Like, you almost had an itch, to go into entrepreneurship, just pivot into something different. A lot of people watching this, I know for a fact, are going through this exact hurdle. The issue is a lot of people don't want to take the jump. So how did you do it?
Well, so there are a couple moments of impact, I call them, and the first is sort of at this moment in time, I had been working for the mayor for 3 years. I was completely sick of it. And I was living at the time with my girlfriend, and I came home from work one night, and she had made this beautiful dinner, and we sat down, and I was bummed. And she looked at me and she said, "You are such a free spirit. I don't know why you spend so much of your time suppressing that." And honestly, bro, that was like the moment that I was like, I don't either. I quit the next day.
Wow.
I literally quit the very next day. But you know, that's a very micro example, but from a more macro thing, you know, I think that there's a lot of influence, right, that prevents people from doing what they actually want to do. And in some cases it's parents, and in some cases it's, you know, you have responsibilities that you're afraid that you can't cover if you go out on your own. I would just tell every person that's watching or listening that doesn't feel like they can take that jump, I would ask them one question. I would ask them to look at their time and their spending patterns and their consumption patterns. And I would ask them if they could take a real honest look at those. What I can almost guarantee, because I've seen this in 98.5% of the cases, is you're wasting a lot more time than you think. And you're spending money on a lot of things that you actually don't need. And, you know, it's a phenomenon, especially in America. Like, there are studies that show that the more money you make, the more stuff you buy. And you don't even need the stuff that you're buying. And so it's just like a thing that happens. When you get a raise, you buy stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think, and this is the same thing. Like, I have so many friends that say, oh, bro, I'm so busy. And I'll say, I'm going to follow you around for a day. Or I want you to literally journal every minute of your day. And they come back to me the next day or a week later and they'll say, dude, I actually waste like 2 to 3 to 4 hours a day. And they're not even, it's not like wasting it watching TV. It's like I was on Facebook and then I watched a YouTube video and before I knew it, an hour went by. And so I would say, you know, a lot of the fear around doing the thing that you really want to do is because you don't think that you have the time or you don't think that you can make the money. But when you really audit your time and really audit how you're spending your money, then it becomes a little bit easier to take that risk, because you can say, I'm not going to go on 3 dates this week and spend $100 every night. I'm going to go on 2, right? I'm going to go on 1. I'm going to save that extra $200, and you know, that's $2,400 over the course of a year. And that sounds small, but you know, in a lot of places, if you're living, $2,400 is enough to get your side business started. And so, and then also the same thing with time. So I would say, first of all, figure out who's holding you back and talk to them about it. Figure out why they're holding you back.
Right.
And second of all, audit your time and your spending patterns and see what is the bare minimum amount of money you can spend a month and still be okay to have the life that you want. And then figure out how to do that and spend less money to do the thing that you really want to do. Awesome
points, man. You were just preaching there, so I was in the zone. But you know, there's a couple things that I obviously resonate with, and I get asked a lot. You know, it's almost like the time management, right? Like, how in a span of 24 hours can you fit, you know, full-time work, podcast, doing this? And I'm sure you get the same because you know, obviously we're on the same hustle here, but you said some really, really interesting points around actually auditing your time. I love that word, because when you actually put it to paper, not in terms of, as you said, I mean, if you're watching, you know, an hour of Netflix just to sort of recuperate and get yourself back, that might be productive, right, in the span of what you're doing relative. But you said when you audit yourself, you might find some points in there that you can actually fill with maybe starting a business, starting an idea, getting yourself going, or hitting the gym, right? I think everybody has time. You don't make it. It's almost like you have time. You just got to make time for it, right?
Totally.
How do you keep yourself organized? I'm really, really curious. Like, give us maybe, you know, a day in the life, and how do you manage all the shit that you have to do?
A day in the life, it varies, but like you know, for example, I'll give you a day in life today, right? It's extremely hard for me to wake up early in the morning because I'm a night owl. I work best at night. And so falling asleep before 1 or 12 or 1 is really hard for me. I envy people that can go to sleep at 9 or 10 and wake up at 5 or 6. I would love to do that. I've tried it so many times. I just think my circadian rhythms are different, you know, and everybody has a different rhythm. And so like so for example, last night I was working until about 1:30 in the morning. I woke up today at 9, breakfast, meeting with the team at 10. I'm here in Colombia, so things start a little bit later. And so, you know, I had a meeting with the team at 10, and honestly, George, I will say this: when I'm working, and I'm a very intense worker, and I hate to waste even a minute. So we did a bunch of stuff today. I have a new videographer here. We're doing a daily vlog around a competition that I'm launching here in Latin America to find and invest in the best entrepreneurs of Latin America and bring them to Silicon Valley on my dime. And so We are documenting that whole process. And so we spent 2 or 3 hours today going through different video clips and him showing me stuff and me kind of training him as to how I want this thing to look. And then, I met with my head of business development, and we went through a complete back-end revamp of the competition itself, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours of calls and meetings, and how is this going to look, and who can apply, and is the application working, and we tested that, and then back to my video team, did a couple more videos, and then I had a call with an investor or with a potential client that wants to find an investor that wants to hire me. Dude, the thing that I really want every single person that's listening or watching to understand is the life of an entrepreneur is not sexy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much bullshit work, man. It's like so much hard work. Phone call, meeting, phone call, meeting. The difference is when it's yours, it's just it's different. That's it. It's different. So it's everything, man. So what I would say is, how do I stay organized? I just recognize that, like last night, I spent from 9 o'clock at night. No, I spent from 5 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock in the morning, kind of outlining how I wanted the week to look. I think also as an athlete, and this is again kind of knowing where your strengths and weaknesses come in. As an athlete, dude, I was like a robot. Right. I was a robot, and so like time management just came so naturally to me because of what I learned from football. Because it would be, team breakfast at 8, class from 9 to 2, film from 2 to 4, practice from 4 to 7, weights from 7 to 8, dinner, team 8 to 9, 9 to 12, homework every day, and so that kind of prepped me for this. But yeah, man, I mean, every day is different, but I think it's a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings. It's a lot of business development. We're DMing 100 people a day on Instagram, seeing if they want a shout out or a competition here in Latin America. Just a lot of work, man. And so, and then I'm trying to do more writing. I go and speak, and then I interact with all my fans, and like I personally, Brian, respond to everybody. You and I, like that's how you and I met. We started jamming. Like we started, I was like, yo, this guy's awesome. He's interacting. He's cool. I've checked out your page, and so I just believe so much in that. I don't outsource that at all. And that's kind of like the day. But I guess if I'm going to give, I don't know if that's helpful for people, but if I can give you one thing that I would say, and it goes back to kind of auditing your time, just because, and I used to be guilty of this, just because you are in the office for 9 hours a day doesn't mean you're getting 9 hours a day of work done. I used to say, when I was studying for the bar exam, I would say, oh my God, I'm studying so much. The truth is I was in the library 5 hours a day, but for 1 hour of those 5 hours, I was eating with friends. The other hour I was trying to like talk to girls, so it's like of those 5 hours, I actually studied for 3. I would have been a better use of my time to actually just study for 3 and then leave and go do something fun.
Yeah, it's also weird how there's this connotation, of whoever stays the longest or, who works, quote unquote, the hardest. But as you and I both know, it's also working smart too, figuring out, what you're good at, what you're meant to do, what you're not meant to do. I think you opened up with a good liner there that you said, look, like entrepreneurship isn't really sexy, and by sexy, it's not sexy, but it's super fun to you, and you do it because you're doing. Like almost a category of entrepreneurship that you love. So if someone who's say a full on like maybe introvert meant for analytics, maybe a software developer, if he or she is looking at this and saying, man, you know what, I go on Brian's Instagram and I see all the speaking he's doing, I would all the traveling, I would love to do that. If they did it one day, of what you do, then all of a sudden, right, what doesn't seem like work, like, oh my, he's speaking, right? Like, what's that? You go on stage and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like, what is that? How is he able to do it so fast, so efficiently, right?
Yeah, I think what you're hitting on here, which is super important, is know your strengths and just do as much as you can around them. Like, I'm looking at right now, like literally, I'm looking at my video guy. He's editing a video. He's been editing the same video for the last 45 minutes. I would lose my mind. Yes, like I would literally. Like he keeps rewinding, and then like now he's like doing it. I've seriously seen the same clip for the last 20 minutes. Lose my mind, But and the introvert would lose their mind. So it's all about, listen, every single one of us has a strength. I can guarantee you that. So if you're watching this,
how does one go about finding it?
I think a couple different ways I think are really helpful, and this is a question I get all the time. Number one, I think about the things that you spend your free time talking about or reading or learning about.
Okay.
right? I mean, I spend my free time interacting with other entrepreneurs, or I spend my free time exploring culture, or I spend my free time thinking through, you know, content. Will watch something to figure out like what creatively that does for me to create my own version of that for content, and that I enjoy that, right? So I think, how do you spend your time? What videos do you watch? What books do you read? Who are you talking to about what over dinner that gets you really excited? And then the second thing is, think about what are the kinds of things that people come to you for advice on. You know, because if you get repeatedly, and you know, this is, people come to me and say, what should I say? What should I say? What should I say? And after 100 times of that, I thought to myself, Brian, you're actually a master communicator, because people keep asking you what they should say. What should I communicate? And so that you should probably figure out a way to use that skill in a business sense. And so, you know, if people come to you for relationship advice all the time, or people come to you for cultural advice, or if you're a great chef and they want to know the recipe, you can probably build something around that, because other people have already identified your value without you shoving it down their throats. So those are the two ways that I would say. And then the third way, which is, I think, a little bit is equally as practical, is you ask the 10 people that know you the best what they think you're the best at.
Right.
You know, my mom, my dad, my brother, my 7 best friends. You know, what do you guys think I'm good at? And that's a really cool insight. You know, and some people have told me things that I've never even thought about. You know, you're unapologetically dedicated to living your truth, or you're unapologetically dedicated to creating business on your terms. That's an insight that I, you know, may not have thought about. So those are the 3 things that I'd say.
That's awesome, man. And I think you dropped a lot of, you know, sort of good keys right there. If I'm to use, you know, DJ Khaled's little hook. But you know, I love especially the fact that you said, look, like, obviously first, if you have EQ, you know yourself, wonderful. Do something about it. Actually build the courage. I know easier said than done, everybody watching, but you got to just, you know, actually pursue something that you love. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable. And I mean, you only have one of this, right? There is no
one
repeat. You have like 28,000 days, right? I always say that, and every day I say it, it almost puts it in perspective, because I lose it too, right? You can get in this mix, even if you're an entrepreneur. You're also gonna have a routine in your day. It might be, you know, it might not be the traditional 9 to 5, but you're also gonna you might hit status quo very easily, even as you call yourself an entrepreneur. One of the things I also wanted to build that for someone who's watching who might not be there yet, but also for someone who is there, how can they get these speaking opportunities? Like, how does one actually go about becoming a speaker? I think that there is no like roadmap to that, right? I mean, you can't just Google it and be like, hey, how do I get on the TEDx stage? Like, it's kind of,
yeah. So there's a couple different things, right? It's like, first of all, you have to understand, what is your speaking career? What do you want your speaking career to look like? In other words, do you want to become, like, you know, I would say 35% of my salary is speaking, right? Which is a sizable amount of money for a speaker.
Yeah.
Some speakers make, you know, $1,000 a year, $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, whatever. So I think that the first thing you have to say is, do you want to speak because you want to make money, or do you want to speak because you really love it and it'll lead to other opportunities? You're using it as a gateway to get more clients, or to sell your book, or to just because you genuinely love the idea of speaking. So that's the first thing. The second thing you have to do is, and this is something that I tell everyone, is, you know, pick a topic, and the more niche the topic, the better, right? So, you know, I talk about communication skills. You're never ever going to get hired to talk about communication skills, because it's too broad. You know, let's drill down a little bit. I help tell their story. Too broad. I help law students tell their story. Too broad. I help third-year law students prepare for interviews. Getting better. I help third-year law students prepare for interviews for jobs in the political arena. Getting very close. Nail it down one more time and you have a real speaking topic. I help third-year law students prepare for the first minute of their interviews so they can blow it out of the water when they're looking to apply for jobs around in the political world post-law school graduation.
Boom. Love it.
So much easier to pitch a law school career services department than I'm going to help your students with their interpersonal skills. So the problem that most people that want to become speakers make is they go so broad that they sound like everybody else, right? So I would say think about how you can go really, really, really niche. And then the second thing I'd say is you got to let everybody know that you want it. You know, there are people, I have friends, good friends, George, that will say to me, Brian, what do you do? And I'm like, that's hilarious to me. Like, they have no idea what I do because everybody's busy, man. And so the thing is that everybody's busy. Nobody's paying attention to what you're doing. And if they are, they forget it a second later. And so you have to constantly be in front of people. So you have to get that speaking topic down, make a list of the 10 to 100 to 1,000 people that you know that may either be interested or that know of someone that may be interested in this specific topic. Create a little media kit, a little one-page speaking tab, and then go do some speeches, record them, invite people for free. Dude, I invited 7 people to my first speech. It was in an apartment in San Francisco. I got them all wine. I got them all drunk. And because of that, I got one other thing. And because of that next speech, I got one more thing. And I mean, I self-organized all my own speeches for the first year.
Small steps, man.
And small steps, bro. And don't, you know, just be humble and enjoy the process. And like, don't think that just because, and I had like a decent background, but that means nothing to people when you're new into the game.
Love it.
And you're new into the game for many. I'm still new into the game. I'm 6 years in, new into the game.
Interesting. Love that, man.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing all these tips and advice, Brian. I'm sure everybody watching this appreciates it. Before I end this off, I always ask the person I'm interviewing, what's that one best piece of advice that you can leave us with for someone watching to get them inspired, to get them to close this laptop and just go and do stuff? What is it?
Trust yourself more.
Done. Thank you so much, Brian.
Trust yourself more, that you know what you want to do and that there's a reason that it's inside of you. You know, in some cases we pick our fate. In some cases our fate picks us and then waits for us to act on it. You know, this is something that I'm working on every single day. This is my 2018 resolution, which is trust your intuition, trust your gut, trust yourself more, because it's in you for a reason. Act on it. And then if you fail, right, then at least you gave it a shot and at least you honored what you felt in that moment. Because I can tell you one thing, the worst thing in the world is thinking back on something that you wish you would have done and you didn't do because of fear or someone was holding you back, or worse of all, because you didn't trust yourself.
No regrets, people. Trust yourself, know who you are, and build the courage to just get after it. Like Brian Rashid, my man, thank you so much for doing this, dude. I honestly appreciate it.
It was a real pleasure, George. We'll see you soon, man. Thanks for having me. Peace, bro.